building nice structures, but people just kind of vanish.
Yeah, and
like,
that's
wait. But you start getting to know people, you realize the part is behind walls.
Exactly.
Like right now we're doing this.
It's only for
people walking the street don't even know it.
It's the connections, right?
The connection.
The door opens.
You do the connection.
And to explore, to really explore.
Okay, we have the last try now. If it crashes again, we'll just reschedule.
Okay.
Because I'm getting warm up. All right. People are waiting. I have to perform here.
But it's not easy sometimes with all the settings and
No, it's okay. It's all right. This is a work in progress.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Because you made the effort to come, so I believe it's really fair just to do my thing as well.
As he said, he chose, and we're having a nice time.
Exactly. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm hanging out with my friends.
I'm
hanging out with my friends. So as I was saying, let me just get back on the trail.
Yep.
All right. I know that people are listening, so you got audience as well. So the perspective of the war is now over, and then school and then the president's work and stuff like that. So I would say this, I was like many young Liberians that are there, we're blessed to have, but I'm certainly to be our major first president leaving our fragile state position, Liberia leaving a fragile state position. Other people out there will disagree. That's their opinion. I respect that. But in my opinion, looking from the perspective of how things were set up, policy-wise, infrastructure-wise, democracy-wise, institutionalizing processes from that perspective, I think that she did a lot for the country, because young Liberians can now look back with pride on Liberia. All right. One of the most important time in Liberian history, recent history, was the Ebola period. I mean, everybody was familiar with that. We were in the middle of that. I was still working for the president at that point in time.
That was very tough.
So it was difficult. It was a difficult period, and I was lucky, like many other Liberians. I was lucky to be in the midst of it, to see her leadership in that.
How necessary it really
exactly
was,
how this and international support, multilateral partners' effort to make sure that Liberia doesn't, go back into a state where it's going to be difficult to dig the country back up. We have support from the U.S., which is our traditional partner, strong ally. We have partners, the UN. All right, we had the EU. Absolutely, the EU was there for Liberia as well. They played a role. They actually, did a lot in terms of engaging and bringing relief and everything else. Red Cross, MSF, everybody played a part. And I can say it clear to them today. They made multilateralism, stronger. Stronger, and they brought pride to Liberians who, at a point in time, felt like they needed their friends to be around. And the president's effort in engaging these people was tremendous. So we move out of that period. Now Liberia has one of the most famous presidents, my new president. His name is George Weah.
Yeah. He's a football player, right?
Former football player, former, but not just former football player.
Yeah, I know.
Top of the top.
He played Chelsea.
Yes, not only that, he won the world best.
Wow.
The best footballer in the world. Yes, the best footballer in the world. Yeah, but he has a strong passion for the country. He has once again passion.
Yes.
He's always had that.
Yeah.
And now he's the president with he has great vision in pushing to continue to push the country forward. Now I do expect in every presidency there will be ups and downs.
Yeah, of course.
In every human life, there's ups and downs.
Sure.
The international environment changes.
So when people are talking about presidency, sometimes I looked at it and it's just like human life. We all have our ups and downs in our lives. We keep the difference from us and the president is in the limelight. For us, we are private, so on the side. Yeah. So he has good plans for the country, to push the country going forward and make sure that Liberia is among those countries that are recognized for democracy and institutionalizing democracy from that perspective. He's right now focused on development and investment for Liberia. So we're moving forward in the direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me cycle back a bit, even though it's a bit of one of the darker aspects. But what led to the wars to begin with? What were the fault lines
In
the 80s and 90s?
Oh, okay, fault lines. Well,
You know, what makes the one group like
yeah,
really
like
go that
The
far?
context of
yeah, I know. I you know, it's a great word used, fault line, and it's clear that from my studies over the years, I think basically Liberia has many fault lines, right? But one of the most important was our historical fault lines. We've had a lot of leadership. Liberia is 171 year old now, 1847.
Okay.
All right. So you have a generation of people that have grown out of despair, poverty, and lack of development, and less participation in the political structure of the country. Right? Of course, disenfranchisement, you call that.
Right, you don't have access to
Exactly.
opportunities.
Opportunities. So that became the first fault line. The second fault line became tribalism, with tribal people all over the place. Because of course, as you see, being deprived of worth and engaging in the countries that you were born in, eventually everybody take to the tribe because they're looking for security.
That's your support,
right?
yeah,
Support.
structure, yeah.
So these tendencies created these natural progressions in our society. So they all became a part of what Liberia was fragmenting into. Right. So it led to that. If you look at Liberia war period, you will hear a lot of issues of tribes, chasing up for tribes and all that kind of stuff. But that was in the past. So these things were happening around the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So one of the most important areas that was affected before the war was the army. We had a lot of tribalism in the army, but during our reconstruction period, the army was reconstructed to include all of the tribes in the country. So it made the entire army very stable, holistic, and to better approach issues of national security in the country. So there's no longer one-sided anymore.
And
so these are the fault lines.
I suppose that it also led the army to really be able to serve the nation and not
Absolutely.
the nation.
Absolutely. So right now, the army is solid, is strong. From that perspective, it has a very good base. So that fault line has been taken care of now. The issue of tribalism, of course, in Africa we still talk about tribalism, but everybody is very conscious now of what it leads into. So people do, of course, you have to associate. Of course, you have to associate because of culture, tradition, and everything else. But people are much more careful how to feed that into politics. It's different now. It's much more different. So people are much more cautious because they understand the negative effect of that in terms of politics.
Because it's very easy to go.
It's very easy to
we
go.
shut off and we
Exactly. So Liberians have learned a lesson from these things, right? Because now we've all seen, the difference and everything. So yes, that's one. Right now, some of our fault lines are poverty, employment. Some of our fault lines. Young people.
How is the situation here with employment?
I mean, it's progressive, right? We are part of the SDGs, and one of the things that we need to do in terms of the SDG is to promote, jobs in the country, and sustainable jobs, not just jobs, sustainable jobs. And we have a younger population in Liberia, overwhelming young population.
Yeah, actually, the average person is 17 and
yes, I think it's under 30. Under 30. So,
definitely.
I mean, under 35, under 35. So it's, relatively one of the youngest population in the country. And our new government has a strong mandate.
Monaco, where
Exactly.
the average is 50-something.
Exactly.
So it's like,
This is the difference. So, our government has a strong mandate to push for more for younger people to kind of like move. And I can look at myself as an example of that push in the right direction. I mean, it's going to be difficult to get there because you're dealing with 4.5 million people, right? And you're dealing with capacity building and everything else. So it's not going to happen in a year or a 2-year time, but it's going to happen within a span of time if that policy is right in the direction. And I think that, and I do believe it in my heart, that our new president has the right policy to push that, because he has the international support to make those policies right. So I think to your most important question, our fault lines that will allow us to divert from progress is being diminished over time, right? The only thing I can say clearly is the fact that people now are very clear on making sure that the alleviation of corruption is strong, and the government is working overtime to make sure these things are resolved, that our right policy, both judiciary and administrative, is put into place to make sure that they solve these issues as best as possible.
So the mechanism
has been exactly.
The results also always cannot be from today to tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But if the mechanism is there, then it's a process of really starting to work, and then yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the mechanism was created first and foremost by our former government.
Yeah.
It's just been strengthened going forward by the new government. The transitional period, exactly, and that's what that's one of the things that the government is working. So, to that, fault line has been diminished over time.
Yeah, that people can go.
I mean, if you look at it, for example, in Europe here, we now have fault lines now.
Yeah.
We now know populism has become one of our fault lines, and the rhetoric of populism is within that, in that scope. So however we deal with that going forward becomes very important. Is either we are going to get out of that or remain in that circle. It's the same thing with most countries back in Africa or in developing countries that are trying to push into this progressive phase. They have fault lines, whether it is tribal, economical, political, or social. They are finding that ways to be able to resolve these things. And Liberia, specifically for my country that I love so much, is one of the countries that is finding ways to get out of that trap, and into a trap where we can see each other and respect each other for who we are, not from where we're from, and what we can contribute to the country. Progress.
Very inspiring. Very
Oh yeah, if you go to Liberia, you'd definitely be inspired. I can tell you that for sure.
I read that you can have a very nice bike.
I mean, Liberia is much more. Liberia is much more ecotouristic.
Yes, ecotourism and the bike and hiking. Yeah.
It's in most ways. We one of the greenest country in the world.
Yeah.
Yep. Free air, clean air.
Yeah.
We have less pollution than many countries around the world.
Yeah.
We have some of the best natural environments that have never been touched by humankind. It's just still there. We have, I don't want to go over the beach issue, but we have a great ocean with a lot of seafood. I know this conversation is not about Brendan, Liberia, but I just love the country, dude.
Yeah.
Yes, I just love the country. But yeah,
we're not getting paid for this.
Exactly. So
you go back often?
I was in school. Remember, I was in school, so I had to take some time off. But I'll be going back this year to visit. I can't wait to feel the sun again.
Yes.
Yeah, some sun.
Here you have to compensate.
But today was a good day, to be fair, to Brussels.
No, lately,
absolutely.
last year, to be honest, something is happening in Brussels because we have many sunny days.
Yeah, but we should be careful. We should be careful with the climate change.
The rest of the world is going to
My
hell.
mother lives here already for 6 years, so I've been visiting, for the last 6 years regularly, and really like the weather and the climate is improving progressively here. I don't know, climate change or whatever, but Brussels, very good. And it's a good development.
It's okay. When we first came in, the notion was, Brussels is, the city is where the sun doesn't shine. But all of a sudden now we see, all of a sudden now we see a big change where you can have a nice weather. The grass is still green at this point in time. It's different. I think Brussels become lovely. In many ways, it's become lovely. Yeah, it's a lovely city.
The longer you live here, the more
you get to love Brussels.
Grows really.
That's why I always tell people.
What you
Brussels
said about the local places as well and these experiences.
When I first came, I was surprised. Where are all these people? Where do they go at night? Why is it people? Things shutting down before 8 o'clock or 8. Just take a little bit of time.
Exactly.
Be patient. And then Brussels will say, here am I. Welcome. And then you'll be like, oh no, I'm so tired. I can't make it anymore. Yeah, that's how it is.
No, I hated it when I first came here, but I was 13, so it's...
13?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just in the beginning. Yeah, it was just after we entered the EU, so... 2007 it was?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It was a long
ago.
time, yeah. And because I was with my mother and she was doing some work here on some conference, so we were around the institutions, and it just seemed so bureaucratic and institutions to me. I mean, all the people, with this, but I was 13, and then that's I remember. But then, like, it changed a lot my perception after that. And,
that's good.
I really enjoy it, yes. And
that's
you
good.
can really meet some amazing people here because it's a very, it's a transit city, so people come and go all the time. They do some interesting things. They're always occupied with something, and then you can have
absolutely
contacts built up here, and then keep them, and even though people move around, and
that's good.
I'm mostly positive about the people.
Yeah.
The city itself, I came first in 2010.
But you come from Vienna.
I was
not from Vienna, from Austria, but you've been living in Vienna. So
I was appalled.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sound like the negative person.
Have you been to Vienna? To Austria?
I'm yet to go to Vienna. Yeah, of course, the former diplomatic capital of the world. You can still debate that. Yeah.
All the spice are there, all the good stuff.
No, but you can get
Vienna
really
really has the
spoiled by
highest.
some stuff. Yeah, because it has the highest, like in Europe,
All the embassies,
it's been
the
winning
UN city.
for like 10 years, like the best city to live.
Yeah.
You can really get some spoiled with the treatment there if you're a citizen.
Because, to be frank, I came here and it's a kingdom of Belgium, so that gives you a certain impression, and it's the seat of the EU.
Yeah.
But I came here with the train or with the bus, and when you go with the bus, you go through the worst parts of the city.
you go for the
I was like,
you wind up at Midi or to the guy you know.
It's the same as in Paris, because everybody has the best impression of Paris.
Yeah, Paris, and then you get there, you see.
God, you know,
Then you go,
they're like they're the hookers, the street hookers, and you're like, where's the Eiffel Tower? Or something like that. But it's always in perspective.
I think most people's impression of a city they've never been to before is always great. And even if you do, if you do get there at a point in time, your mind is now much more focused on finding those crevices that are negative. You want to find those areas that are positive. So I remember when I went to Paris, I was like, wow, this place looks cool. It looks cool. People moving around, I like the infrastructure. But I was like, well, at the end of the day, it's still going to be here. But to be honest with you, I like everything else that's around, there. But for me, it's much more about space. Space. I think because I grew up in that way. I grew up with a lot of spaces around, and air and so.
Europe is very cramped.
I think so.
The small streets, the big buildings, and then you don't see the sky much, and you can't really.
But people are lovely.
But you would love Berlin then. This is one of the things about Berlin.
Berlin is very her space.
So
I can't wait. I came across a documentary on that. I know I got to go see Berlin. Okay, then I got to see it. So the space is great.
Huge streets, huge boulevards. The buildings are kilometers across from each other.
They had a sense of proportion somehow that they built into the city. Because that's one of the things I don't like about Brussels is that they don't seem to have put much thought into how they make the city. In Berlin, they were just like make it big, make it grand,
but also logical,
special.
the place for the cars, the place for the pedestrian, the place for the bikes. I mean, it's somehow everything goes logically into one another.
But the difference is, if we see Berlin before World War II, it would have been different.
Yes, that's the thing. Everything was
Berlin
rebuilt,
after World War II was redesigned.
Yes, absolutely.
Redesigned.
Yes,
so I'm sure that's what it is.
But you know that also the Soviets during the while the USSR was still existent, in some cities they actually moved the whole city blocks to make the streets wider.
Yeah.
It's insanity. In Moscow they did it.
Why didn't they do it in Bulgaria then? Like the situation,
So you both know you've been to Africa yet, right?
No.
You should. You don't say I love to go. I would have loved to go. Go.
Yeah,
that's why it's interesting to speak to you.
Okay. I mean, let me just say from a perspective of people who have never been to Africa before. There's just negative light that's just thrown around. Oh, Africa is this, is that, is malaria and everything else. I get it. I get it.
But also in South America,
but guess what? There's not much if you go prepared.
Yeah.
For example, when I was coming to Brussels, or Europe. If I wasn't prepared, the cold would have killed me. Right? So I need to check, find out what I need to get. How do I need to get myself prepared to go there? As long as you get yourself prepared to go there, you're good. And when you're there, the people are very hospitable. You're never going to find someone who's going to, not look at you in a way that you respect. They're not judgmental. Africans are not judgmental. They're very warm and welcoming, and the environment is usually natural. Everywhere around the world, they have bad people and good people. I think if you got good connections back in Africa, you're going to visit, you'll always enjoy it. All right. Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the best places to be because you are able to see life.
So,
like you can really wake up in the morning and walk outside of your hotel room and see life and say, wow, am I blessed or am I wasting time in life?
Yeah.
And you can come back and remember when this guy had before he had a breakthrough, Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, they all took a trip to India. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. And from that perspective, they were able to realize something. However, they wanted to figure it out there or someone else, at the end of the day, it enriched their lives. They were able to see and say, okay, you know what? Let me take air a little bit. Let me walk outside my bubble and see other life out there. How does it exist? What is people doing out there, right? Today, Bill Gates doing the same thing. He's going to different countries and everything. Imagine it's an ordinary citizen, and you want to push forward. You want to see life. You want to be able to have a different perspective of life. For me, right now, I have a different perspective of life. I've lived in Africa all my years, and then I came to live in Europe. I have best of both worlds. And it's okay, this is European. Okay, this is African. This is my middle ground.
Yes.
Right? You can be able to say that to yourself.
Such richness.
Yeah, so I mean, just take a trip one day, forget about the philosophical part of it. Just take a trip. Say, I'm just going to spend a weekend or a week there. Of course, a weekend is not cost effective. But
how do we go to Liberia if we want to?
Come to my embassy and get a visa and just go.
We need a visa, right?
That's all. Yeah, you need a visa.
Where would we go? And let's say, to be fair, let's exclude Liberia from the list for now.
Yeah, let's leave Liberia out of the list.
Yeah, because you're
everybody wants to go to South Africa. No, don't go to South Africa. Go to Sierra Leone. It's one of the richest countries in the world. The people there have great culture. Go to Cote d'Ivoire. It's the Paris of West Africa.
Yes.
Go to Ghana. All right,
yes, as well.
And chill and eat some dumboy or then some.
What's dumboy?
Dumboy is pounded cassava.
What's cassava?
Okay, cassava.
Going down there.
Yeah, I was gonna say cassava is this big brown tuber, like a root.
Yeah.
Right, but when you peel it, it's very white inside of it.
Vegetable?
Yes, it's a root, basically a root, right?
It's not meat.
But it's the richest carbohydrate root you can find. Like it's full of carbohydrate. So you build it. It's more in terms of carbohydrate than rice. So it's very rich. So the Ghanaians will prepare that with plantain, what we call banana. The big one they call banana is yellow. It's big. You do that and stuff, and what you're looking at is iron, potassium, and of course carbohydrates. So you have these three together, plus seafood and everything else. So it's delicious. It's delicious. As a matter of fact, I remember right. Melania Trump was just in Ghana. She went to visit.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Good.
And and you can get history lessons.
Is she doing some of her
of some of those things, all right. And Obama's wife was in Liberia. She went to visit Liberia. She saw the place and everything else. So Africa is very vibrant. It's the music, the food, the culture, the people, the freedom. It's there. It's huge. It's huge. It's there. It's just that we get this scared constantly. Oh, Africa is bad. Oh, Africa is bad. No, it's not.
It's just people always see it through a lens.
My friends as well have traveled,
that's not true.
Families and go work for some time and then go back. I mean,
I tell my friends take a trip. I'm here in Europe.
No, I agree because it's the only way to see a place.
Take a trip
because Africa, like any other place, gets filtered through the news.
Yeah.
You don't get positive news.
You don't get it positive. You take a trip.
It's okay. Something negative that happened. And the people
somebody out there will say, "Oh, he's African. That's why he's being biased." Nope. I'm giving you the fact. Go there, check it out for yourself, and you will come back being changed. Like, wow.
No, it's so refreshing to just go out of your bubble and to see as well another place and another
the Gambia. Go to the Gambia.
Yeah.
Go and chill in the Gambia.
I always thought about Madagascar to be.
Oh, Madagascar is way south. Go to Madagascar.
Yeah.
Everything in Madagascar is huge. Like all the animals there, the creatures there, they're huge. Go and see it. Just take a trip.
Exactly like a trip, in the nature. I mean, and this might be though a little bit more dangerous. I mean, you have to be well prepared as well.
You don't go on your own. Just walk straight.
Yeah. But maybe we can because with him we like hiking.
Yeah.
So
that's a great place.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great place to hike. You will love it. You will love. You come back, you'll be changed. You'll be like, whoa, I've enjoyed it.
I can remember when I was in my first school, a good friend of mine, Lilia, actually. She went to Kenya when it was winter, and we, being the asshole kids that we were 5, we were picking fun at her because she was so tan, and we were all white like that. That's all we were focused on.
Yeah, but you were smoking.
Yeah, we were 5 years old, and I feel pretty bad for her. But then she showed me pictures and it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of
how kids
and you were,
a lot of
having
people.
your winter at home, and she was having her
she was
fun there with the sun. And
she was so tan.
Yeah, you guys should go. I mean, like for me right now, when work is not at its peak, I take the opportunity of seeing Europe, go and see. You can never judge a country. I don't care what kind of history they had. Austria, Germany, Spain, you can never judge them because you don't know. You weren't part of that history before. You are part of a new generation of making history right now. You are making your own history. So you go and see the people. First and foremost, most people, in my belief, that's maybe from a humanist perspective, most people want to be kind.
They really do. I
people want to be kind,
right?
Even if you find hardliners, right, they still want to be kind, but your approach is very important.
Absolutely.
Approach. For example, if I hadn't approached you appropriately in school, I never would have been here.
Yeah.
Right? You never would have gained the respect that you have for me. I never would have gained the respect that I have for you. I think our approach is very, very important because we're all trading on this edge. And every human being wants respect. Right? Whether it is where we are demanding it or it is freely giving, we want respect. So how you receive respect in return, you reciprocate that.
Yes.
And I think if I go to Germany or I go to Italy or I go anywhere else, if I respect myself first, people give me respect back.
Yes.
And if I respect them, they will end up giving me respect in return.
Yes.
I think it's as simple as it is. If they go to Africa, if they respect my country and they respect me within my country, I get them respect back. I have a lot of white friends that have been, from all over the place, been around. Like Europeans, Americans, everybody else. Very good at respect.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So I think, from the common perspective.
Maybe to get to know the other person and hear that if you're visiting at least a country and everything. I mean, when I moved to Vienna, I was very, very shy of speaking in German. I mean, I still even am because I'm fighting with my tough history with learning languages. But anyway, I saw how people really, like when I started speaking in German, many times, like their faces just light up because I look totally Eastern European, and everything. And then I tried to speak the language, and it's encouraging. It's encouraging to see that. And it's respect and somehow interest to who are you, where are you?
Yeah, I mean, language is one of the key.
I mean,
to every culture, language is one of the key. Austrian, Liberians, Germans, wherever you put them, right? For example, if I go to, let's say if I knew how to speak German, and I just walk, I said, let me go visit Germany, and I start moving around, and maybe in a pub or having a drink, and I start speaking German to other guys. The first thing is, it creates a universal acceptance. If I'm speaking German, or German who's listening to me can say, I won't listen to you because you're different. The language has no color.
Yeah, exactly.
Language has no color.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or same with happiness. The moment I start speaking that language, the guy over there will feel happy. So, oh, you speak German. Same thing will go to Liberia if you're speaking any dialect in Liberia. Like, for example, there's a guy who spent 46 years. He's an Italian. He spent 46 back and forth, but he has known Liberia for 46 years. He speaks the Liberian colloquial language, like broken English, so to speak, the street language, like really, really good. Sitting in my office at my embassy, and he comes through to visit, just to say hi. And he walks up to my office, elderly guy, I'm going to speak in Liberian now, so we can understand Liberian colloquial. He said, "My man, what's up?
They say that.
How you doing? Where you coming from? You know me?" Kind of way. And I'm like,
but it's just in the intonation.
And I was reading actually, and I lifted my head like, my mouth dropped like.
I didn't expect that.
I did not expect that. See, that instinct of realization that somebody can say stuff that I understand is very, very important. At the moment, at that immediate moment, I was able to accept him immediately without judging anything. I didn't know him from anywhere. I didn't know his background, but the fact that he could speak, I accepted him immediately. Then it took me to, I started asking questions. So how do you know how to speak my language? Where are you coming from? So right there, it created some level of camaraderie between the two of us.
My man, right? And you
exactly. So language is very, very important.
It is.
It's very important.
But just,
But even speaking 5 words in a language.
That you're making an effort.
No, exactly. That's what I say about making the effort to show the other person that you're interested into something that can actually relate you to him. I mean, that's like when he goes to Bulgaria, and because my part of the family that's there, my dad with his girlfriend, and the whole family speak only Bulgarian. And then and the girlfriend of my dad, she always giggles because he says a couple of words, Zdrasti, Haide, and then she, he says it so funny, he knows these words, and it's like,
what is it? You got to ask. Like once I was investigating in my mind, why is it that we are so eager and so deeply in tune to this idea that we want somebody to speak our language, or maybe at least say something? Because we have this deep human need to connect.
Yes.
Right, we all want to connect with each other. So if you go to someone's country and you can't speak their language at all, what happens is frustration. They all become frustrated. Like, okay, you know what? We can express ourselves to this person. We can even, it's difficult for even pointing the direction of the road. It's useless. There's a wall. Exactly. There's a wall. Once that language barrier is broken, that wall is broken, you can cross over and speak. Forget about it. It's just going to be like easy. So I think language is very.
Right.
I think language is very powerful.
The biggest urge is really to find lines where we can connect, and the language is the most sophisticated tool that we have.
It's the greatest tool. It's the greatest tool. It's the greatest tool.
To exchange something and then to find this connection within this exchange.
It's the greatest tool.
If you don't have it, then there's also a threat somewhere, You can't judge what the other person is saying, so what are his intentions?
Exactly.
And sometimes it can be overcome in a way. I mean, it's like, I don't know, like language is a big barrier if you can't understand each other at all. But then like a person searches
it's also history. If people are, if we look at the timeline of human history, we have a very brief period of human history where we can be as free as we are now. I mean, 50 years ago, an Austrian and Bulgarian and a Liberian would
never be in the same place. No.
Absolutely.
And so usually when a huge group of people was coming that didn't speak your language, usually you wouldn't.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a total threat. They're coming to invade you and to take your country. That was the mentality.
I think that's one of our window into our new global order, where we are able to share our language with other people from other places. I can remember when I first started, even to speak the Liberian colloquial, we were Liberians were like, oh no, this is broken language, I don't want to speak it, because it's mixed with English and dialects, so you have to pick it up in a certain way. But it's a distinct language. That's just recently I was watching a documentary, and this tribe, where they're in Europe, somewhere in Europe, but they whistle. They use whistling to communicate. Yes, to use whistling to communicate.
Where is this?
It's in Europe, somewhere in Europe here.
Italy, possibly.
Somewhere there, but it's a mountainous area.
Yes, yeah. I believe in Cinque Terre. I don't know if it's that one.
Somewhere.
They use it because they can't. It's so mountainous.
Yes, mountainous area. Rocky area. Yes.
It's the same reason why they yodel in the Alps.
Yes, and UNESCO has made it called a heritage area and a heritage language for that reason. So whatever your language is a way that you can bring people to understand you. So even in Liberian broken language, despite the fact that Liberians speak standard, the educated Liberians speak standard, but holistically on the social surface, you have all Liberians speaking this broken language every day, and they communicate, they trade, they communicate, they socialize, they Christianize, whatever they want to do, they do it in that area. So if you're a foreigner, yes, you're a foreigner comes in, the more you understand it, they accept you immediately. Oh yes, the same thing with your country. In your country, get there, pick it up.
You can pick it up because it's even it's just a sub form of English. Right?
Yes, a sub form of English. Yes.
If you just go like a person who speaks English, you will understand at least half.
Absolutely, you understand half of it. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same. I would put it in the same category as if you're speaking Bulgarian, right? I suppose it's a language, but at some point, if you start understanding the entire Bulgarian, you realize there is local Bulgarian on the street level where people don't care. They just pronounce carelessly and walk away, and it is standard Bulgarian. So the moment you start from the lower tier, and then you kind of build up to the real one, so it becomes like strong. I mean, all over language is very, very important. To me, I'm very lazy when it comes to language. Even though I'm pro-language guy, but I can say that one of the reasons why we are facing difficulties in our world today is because we have not fully embraced the exchange of languages. All right, we haven't fully embraced that, because if we fully embrace language as a bridge, right, as everybody have known it to be always, we'll cross a lot of areas.
Do you think that there should be then one universal global language?
No, it's not possible. I disagree on that point, because the diversity of languages made the word rich.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. It's made the word rich. It's preserved cultures. It's preserved tradition. It has preserved nations. Right, and if we have a global culture, we will lose nation identity. Yeah, it means we're losing sovereignty, we're losing everything else. So it's a whole different.
That's the new fault line that we have right now.
Exactly. It's a new.
That's interesting because many people were, like. Of course, I understand the biggest benefit, and one of the biggest benefits, some of the biggest benefits that we have achieved is exactly because of this global expansion somehow. But many people do the trade-off, I mean, I don't care about my culture. I put behind my culture, my language and everything, and I go to the global idea. And it's interesting that you say that we have to kind of appreciate both and find how to coexist.
Well, funny is that the culture is interlinking.
It is, yeah.
The culture is interlinking. What you have to do, I mean, I can accept that culture is different. There are differences in culture, but there are triggers of in cultures that are similar. For example, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, actually my girlfriend, who is from Latvia. We're having a conversation. I don't care about her very much. And then she said something that was very similar to Liberian. All right. In Liberia, we have what do we call it? Suspicion of things. We have these weird, name will come to my mind, is weird behavior. Like, for example, if you're walking in Liberia and you stomp your right foot, it means something.
Oh, right.
If you're walking like Brian, stomp your left foot, it means something.
So it's superstition.
If you're superstition, exactly. Yeah. If your palm is itching, your right palm is itching you, it means something. If your left palm is itching you,
somebody is sending you something.
Exactly. You don't mess with black cat and all that
kind of thing. We also had that.
You see? So in Liberia, the more you talk to people, you realize that superstition within the culture, some of them are global. When she said, "Oh, you don't mess with black cat," I'm like, in Liberia too. you know.
And it's great to discover weird.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that's so different between our cultures, in Liberia we don't count flowers.
Yeah.
In Latvia, you don't give somebody even number flowers.
Yes, with us as well. You don't.
In Liberia, we don't care.
You
have
don't care.
to you have to give them
Even if
odd
it's
number.
2 or 4 or
You have to get an odd number. In Liberia, we don't care. We give you 10. We give you 10, 2, 5, 6, whatever.
Yeah.
But in Latvia, you can only give odd number, not even number. I didn't know that.
Oh no.
with us
But
even
why?
number is for
Did she say
funerals.
why?
Because-
Don't you have that too?
All I know about
Funerals.
flowers is the
Number
counting
on
with the.
Yeah, what- even number is funerals.
He doesn't
no,
like
no,
me.
no, no.
Even-
If I give, if you come and you give me like 4 roses, for example, I would be like, why? I mean, because it's something like.
You see that?
Funeral.
I didn't-
Bad.
No, I
didn't know that.
Because I'm the least superstitious person, so even if you told me, I would be like.
So you
And
see, superstition,
I also don't care, but in general,
superstition
everybody knows it.
is cultural.
Yeah,
Because in
it's
every culture there is superstition. So if you understand, it's almost like knowing where to step and where not to step
Yeah.
in a culture. So you ask for these things. So in Liberia, it's almost like in Liberia, if someone meets you in Liberia for the very first time, if you're maybe a foreign guest for the very first time, they present you with a white chicken.
Oh.
Right?
It's a good
It's a
sign.
good sign.
it's a good sign.
And you have to do 2 things. You have to eat the cola nut and spice
Oh, wow.
and drink water.
Okay.
So the water is purification. You're okay. The cola nut is my hardship. It shows 2 extremes. That you can accept Liberian's extreme. And then if you're lucky, you get flowers too.
Oh, being right.
It
doesn't matter.
Exactly. So you see, culturally,
It is.
the more you understand the cultural differences and you appreciate what the culture is, you understand, okay, you know what, these people and myself, we have something in similar
That's the thing.
together.
I've
you know?
always
Very
seen the
beautiful.
differences as such richness, as something that it's really like, I don't know, inspiring to explore, because people I mean, I think this is changing as well, though. I mean, this mentality that differences are something scary, but I always enjoyed that. For example, in our relationship, because Austria is so different than Bulgaria, even though we're both, in Europe, but it's absolutely different. And getting to know your culture firsthand, it's just wow.
I'll be careful to compare this, but in Europe, in some part of your Eastern European country, you got paganism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
We're pagans, totally.
In Africa, you got traditionalism. It's the same form of paganism. They don't believe in Christ or structural, deity. They have different gods, right? They believe in their different gods, and it seems in paganism they believe in different gods. So all worship different gods in different ways, right? But the difference between I realize between paganism and traditionalism is the fact that in traditionalism is more of male dominant society, whereas in paganism is more female dominant area, because majority of the strong gods within paganism are female.
Yeah.
The most Aphrodites,
Yeah,
paganism. So there's a lot of women worship. Right, and of course you have Zeus and everybody else, whatever you want to talk about that. What is Greek, whatever, Greek mythology, whatever. I don't know much about paganism. Be careful with that. But at the same time, in African traditionalism, you have these same things. You have these same. So you can look at the world from a lot of perspectives. But a lot of similarities. Globally, a lot of similarities in the world.
Yeah.
It's just practiced in a different way.
Different expressions.
In different expressions. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're much more bonded than we believe.
We are. I mean, if you really check it out, I mean, we all, deep down inside, we all want the same thing.
Absolutely, yes.
We're all looking for the same thing: life, security, happiness, family.
We're made out of stardust.
Stardust.
We
Stardust.
Or
there you go.
Nobel laureate, the physician who went to take his Nobel Prize, but don't ask me about the name because I have to check it. And he said one thing, which is the total number of minds in the universe is 1. We are all a one. Actually, one entity that just exists.
We're all trying
expressions.
we're all trying to get the same thing in different ways.
Yes.
The outcomes are different. I mean, our approach is different, but the outcomes are the same.
Yeah.
Like for you two are forming one union to raise a beautiful kid, hoping for an extended period of life of happiness, love, joy, and everything else. God, I'm looking for the same thing. God, someone out there looking for the same thing, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day, we all I want to be careful how I use the word settle, because we're in the age of women.
No,
So it's not an issue of settling, but an issue of being progressive and strong. Knowing that I can find a partner who is not subdued to household chores, but can support our life in a very vibrant, independent way, and make things happen. I think that's what we've reached in our lives right now.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why there's a pushback on the conversation of this whole issue of the Me Too movement that has come so far in bringing women agenda to the forefront as it should be. Because at the end of the day, to be honest with you, our human culture can survive without the strength of women. It can't. I mean, imagine the entire world just a bunch of men.
But also, without the men we can't survive, and without the women we can't survive. And we both are one.
It's a partnership.
Unity, really.
It's a partnership.
It's like really the yin and yang. I mean,
but that's why respecting that partnership is very, very important. Supporting that partnership is very, very important. And allowing that partnership to thrive is very, very important.
And the freedom of each part in this partnership to really contribute in the best way that it can. But
hence,
really I can choices.
Absolutely, I can make a recommendation to my president, my former president, right? She's female.
And it's so inspiring that there are women on such positions.
Exactly.
It's also, for me, it's inspiring that there are other women, even nowadays, that decide that maybe they really want to have many children and want to take care of the family and really want to take care of the house. This, for me, is equally inspiring as the women on actually the positions like presidency and everything, because we have to really respect the fact that women are already absolutely independent, capable, strong, and confident enough to make their decisions, no matter whether this decision is, okay, I go represent the country, or I stay at home and represent my family. Both choices are absolutely valuable and have to be respected.
Fully agree with you. Any day, any hour. And that's what it has to be, a choice.
Exactly.
All right.
I believe this is taken. We're already, and that's my bone that I have to pick with the Me Too movement, I believe. We're already so far that women actually don't have much of a choice anymore, because they're being told that they can have everything. Being told you can have children, you can have a career, you can have lots of money, you can have the best type of husband. And from what I see, also seeing from the institutions, is it doesn't always work like that. And still, we have so many opportunities. It's about the choices that we make.
Exactly.
Do you want to work for 20 years and then start a family when you're 45 as a woman? Or do you say...
It could be possible, but it's a choice. You have to really be aware of it. That it's...
Because we... Well, as we were talking about earlier, growing up in such a globalized world, we are actually overwhelmed by choices sometimes.
It's true.
You know, and I'm in the same boat. Like, you get out of university and you're being told, okay, you need to study, even though we actually need more people who learn practical jobs and who don't study. And this can lead to a certain confusion, you know.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and.
That's why it's so important that you're aware of the choices that you're making, because you have so many.
Exactly.
But you ask yourself the first question: haven't we always been overwhelmed by choices?
I don't think it's the female. I don't think it's just to say because I'm gonna lose my thought. I don't think it's only a female problem. It's overall humanity's problem right now, and depends. For example, in communist Bulgaria, you were not. Believe me, the choice was the one thing that was really so much limited, even though you had other freedoms that were very weird, and maybe we don't have them even today, you know. And you had other securities that we don't have now. But for example, choice was no. You were appointed from the moment that you were born. You were born in a specific family. This family is in a certain societal position, close to the party, or a little bit like away from the party. So you're appointed from the moment on what you're going to be doing, in which school you're going to be going, what you're going to be graduating, in which fabric you're going to be working until the rest of your life, and
But that's a hierarchical society. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
But what we're talking about is a liberal society.
In a liberal society.
What we've moved from is that kind of society that constrict or restrict the freedom to explore
Absolutely.
Right? Because, for example, a girl from an elementary school whose name is nothing, right, can rise up through everything else and then become something very important, become a minister or whatever. Yeah. At first, back in those days, even if you had all of those, for example, take Margaret Thatcher, for example. I'm not talking about politics, I'm about her life, right? She grew up in a society that was restricted. Women would belong in a certain, certain environment. But you can see through her documentary of her life stories that she broke through those social barriers to believe that she can become something important. As much as the society at that point in time was shying on the fact that a woman was stand up among men to have a voice. Right? That became a part of some of the key that opened up this whole structural notion that women can even do better. Going back all the way to World War II, when we entered the labor market, all right, while many men were on the front line, it also changed the perception that women can become better. Now, in our age, right, wherever society you grew up in, I think the notion that women are now far off in where they need to be is not enough, because this is what is not enough. If you look around the world, almost every legal institution that exists today were created by men. Women weren't there. Most of the Supreme Courts you find around the world today are still ruled by men. Most of the legal structures that still represent the country are still, you still see he instead of she or he. Right? These instruments are there. That is the front where women are now. Where, okay, yes, we can wear whatever we want in certain countries, in liberal societies, we can wear what we want to wear. We can express ourselves. But the laws that represent us, that cover us, those things that make us who we are, am I being reflected in that? Is my right reflected in that? Is it protected in that? For example, look at the issue of rape. How do you protect that? Look at the issue of welfare, childbearing, welfare. We know a woman will have kids at her choice, which is I'm pro-choice, for that matter of fact, so I say choice. But when she is going through that period, what becomes of her male counterpart responsibility? So these are things that we have to look at and end this, figure out how do we address our new society to. Because now it's 1 + 1 to make 2 to bring up a kid. It's no longer, okay, I'm just going to have kids by the woman, make her a single mother and just walk away. You have to have some structure in place to make that work. Right now we see that, when you are married to a woman, you can't walk away and just leave the kid. You have to make sure that you're there. But what if, yeah, of course, a woman cannot all walk, of course. It's both ways. I'm saying that what protects the woman. At the lower level, in marriage, a woman is protected, making sure that the man will contribute. He's not going to walk away, right? But at a lower level, where they are not married, but they have kids, and they separate. What is the legal instrument that protects that woman to make sure that guy, who by virtue of fact, even though they're not married, he still remains a part of a contributing factor?
If he recognizes the kid, then you have the legal grounds to kind of...
But that law does not exist all over.
It's not. Although in Europe, it's kind of...
It's growing into a concept to apply to law. Okay, if we are not legally married based on the institution of marriage, and we met and have a children or a child, what is my responsibility as a man?
We are not married and we have a child.
All right.
So if something happens,
that's the point.
Yeah,
by virtue of the law, he can walk away.
Of course, he can walk away at any moment.
He can walk away. Nothing you're going to do, you're going to chase the court and say, I need child support.
Yeah.
But what law demands him to make sure that even though both of you came together and have a kid, he has a responsibility not just for cash, but for fatherly care as well.
But this can't be done by law.
That's what I'm saying.
How could it be done?
That's what I'm saying. You can debate that in many ways, but the outcome of a reproductive position, right, should be, if it's in marriage, does it mean it should be in law? Does it mean you should be in non-marriage setting? If you are just, we're just together, the two are hanging around, no kid involved, that's fine. And you can walk your way and go. But if a kid becomes involved, what happens next? So these are all new ways people are thinking about to approach this for safety. Because if you look at society, some of the worst things in society are children without fathers.
Of course, absolutely.
The fathers are not there. The fathers are alive, but they're not there. They're just wandering around and say, well, I don't have a dad.
Sometimes I would ask you, do you think that there's some cases when the father is in such a bad state as an example, as a person, that it's even better maybe to be absent than to be there? Because example is everything. You learn by what you basically see, what you experience, especially when you're young. Sometimes even, although I know it's an awful scenario, but it's better even the father to be off. So what he said about laws cannot create that. You can't push for the person to bear responsibility, to be engaged, to be passionate, to be really there, to love. You can't push a person to love.
Okay.
And this is actually, of course, the monetary support is something else. Here we have to have really mechanisms that kind of divide this responsibility. If you have created a kid, not to be all on the mother or all on the father, you have to both kind of be engaged monetarily, because we still need money to survive in this world.
I fully agree, but let's look at the law that draws a dichotomy between who is seen and not seen. Love, a father who can give love to a kid, and a father who can't give love to a kid. It's almost like a person going to a court and trying to prove that they are insane, or they could decide based on proof this person can give love.
But the thing is that if the father if he doesn't want to be involved, should the law push him further except covering some monetary?
The law can never push for love, because love is not.
What I wanted to
but
say.
But the law can push to make sure that the father takes care of the kid monetarily if he's working.
This is exactly what I
if he's working, and that's what I'm saying. Because most mothers, when after childbearing, they fall below an economic bracket, because now it's not just one anymore; it's two, right? And if the father leaves the home,
I agree.
The mom, it becomes tough to find child care, take care of the child. The mom wants to get back into the work environment,
it's so expensive
exactly. So then it's the issue of it's expensive. And then just guy going off holding like 4 girls and walking around, and,
we know
enjoying himself.
Cases,
so if the law,
although I know the opposite, unfortunately, as well.
It can be. I'm arguing on the other side right now. So the case is, what's the remedy for that? To make sure that fathers, whether financially or morally, are responsible for their offspring with a lady. Right. So if it exists in marriage, then there is a way that it can exist in other places. Because right now there is a growing perception that the institution of marriage has a problem. So people are now finding alternative means of having family. Without the institution of marriage, but they just don't have it. So how do you protect that too? See that? So then it calls into the question of, okay, we need to find some remedy of legal norm that protects these kinds of institutions. I'm just saying, it's a new field and everybody's talking about it right now. More and more women are going with the idea that, well, I don't need a guy in my life. I can do everything for myself. And then one day they look at, nice, getting too late. Let me just have this kid.
That's what I meant.
Exactly. This is what he meant with the choices. So you have to really make consciously the choice and then be ready to meet the responsibilities that come with it, or the consequences. But because you mentioned something, and I just want to briefly ask, because you mentioned, the legal systems and how somehow the legal mechanisms were predominantly, at least here in Europe, made by men.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's absolutely
history all over the world.
It's absolute fact.
Facts.
Do you think that this means that they were in a way more advantageous to men than to women? Because when you I still have, but this is maybe my positive vision, that still these people that created the laws were not thinking out of their gender. So even though they were predominantly men, that doesn't mean that they have created a system that gives less opportunities or rights to women. Because I don't know, that's my take.
All right,
I actually think here in Europe we have made a very good progress that we should really that's exactly for women and for the place we have in society. And I do see we're equal to men, and sometimes I have problem with these notions of feminism nowadays, because I see
that's a whole But it's a
difference. But not here. I see a need for that in war zones where women trade their food for sex. I see a need for that. I'm sorry, yes. I mean, I know people should not be judged according to their religions, but I will be honest, and I am always honest about what I say. I mean that, yeah, in systems like this, like core Islamic systems, I see a need maybe for some form of women's support and feminism, but here in Europe sometimes I'm confused because I feel like it's all about your choice. And indeed, we women sometimes make choices that kind of gets us into positions like, and then we play the victim card, but it's actually a reason of our own choices.
There is no doubt in my mind that in every progressive system there will be exploitation.
Yes, that's
no doubt.
That's always, yes.
No doubt. But the question remains, do we need to make progress? Yes. One of the idea is the fact that all of the laws that we know today were created based on male bias. That's one thing in law. And in order to break the circle of that bias within law, we now have to look at a certain aspect. One of the bias was the fact that a woman could not decide how to even use her own body. Right? That's how this whole issue of pro-choice came into place in the first place.
But in which laws is that? In the laws that we have now, you can decide.
The law has changed from what it is. It has changed. It's a beginning point and everything.
Yes.
But now a woman can now decide within certain societies how I use my body. My body is mine.
Yes.
And that's from a humanist perspective. Your body is yours.
Yeah.
Right? If you meet a guy and you want to, build a family with him, say no is no, yes, there's other messed up with that. Now, I do get it that we've reached a place where the system that we try to develop in terms of feminism, there are certain exploitation. There are high-line feminism, and there are much more moderate feminism. The same way there are moderate, Democrats and Holland and whatever the case, all over the world. So there are some women who believe that this is, I hate that. They don't understand that, okay, this is based on mutual respect. I got my man in my life. I'm his woman. I give him the respect he demands as a man, and he gives me respect I demand as a woman. If I walk out of my house, I hold his hands, we walk out, people see us, respect, I'm his girl. He's my man. Right? I can say whatever I want to say about him in the most polite way as necessary. I don't have to stamp my foot on the ground like, oh no, we are equal. No, there's a difference between the two of us, right? And there are other women who want to express a different opinion. I respect that opinion, that's fine with them. But I believe that it is much more easier in my world if I'm respecting my woman out of respect, right? For example, one of the trouble that we find in relationships nowadays, in our liberal relationship, is cooking. One of the biggest problems we find. If I want to cook for my girl, I cook. I come home, I cook. If she's coming from work late or whatever the case is, I'll take the responsibility. Come and fix something because it's a collective responsibility.
Yes.
I do it. But if she starts to think it's my duty, it's a whole different different story. But she feels like, oh, sweetie, you cooked yesterday. Don't worry about it. You just relax yourself. I'm just going to go in the kitchen and do it for us. It's all right. It puts me in the position to understand that, okay, this is two of us thing, we can do it. So it motivates me to want to do more.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So
it's all about the approach.
Exactly. The approach is very, very important. So when you start working together like that, it makes it much easier. In my opinion, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
No, because I really like what you're saying, and you don't have to make much of a recourse to laws in the practical application.
Yeah.
That's important in my view. Yeah. Because when it comes from the inside,
it's so
you don't need any external factor.
No, you don't fight.
Yes.
Fight that.
And I think that it's a respect because we all the time say respect to my woman, respect to my man. It's a respect from another living being that also exists. I mean, you can't. I know this is extreme, but you can't be like super respectful for your woman at the same time beat the crap out of your dog. Just for like the dog being a little bit.
symptom of how to treat another human being. The reason is because dogs don't talk. They feel. They communicate by, yelling or whatever the case is, but they don't stand up to you like the way other human beings will do. So
they do some troubles.
I know, but it's not really direct unless they don't know you.
Yeah.
When they don't know you, then but the retaliatory effect from another human being to another human being creates this deterrence.
Yeah.
Oh, look, don't hit me again. Don't ever do that. Don't insult me again. Don't ever do that, because whatever you are able to do to me to hurt my feelings, I have the capacity to do the same thing to you to hurt my feelings. So it's like, okay, you know what? If this lady if I can do this to her, it's possible she can do this to me. So you know what? Let me just stay out of this. So it gives us, it's almost like a deterrence of justice.
It is true.
So relationship must exist in the confines of justice. Exchanges. I just think that.
It is true. It is true. Although still, I would argue that there is a little bit. I mean, if you would treat somebody with love and respect, you would treat also the animals like that. You would probably treat your home like that.
But not everybody likes dog, remember?
Like I mean,
not everybody likes dog, remember?
Yeah.
So I can treat my girlfriend the best. She has a dog. I don't like this dog that much.
Yes.
So I won't give the dog that much love. The question becomes, if the person is an animal lover, the person is an animal lover is a whole different story.
Yeah,
all human beings love another human being, one or the other, because the human being is another person who's a human, right? But if you don't like dogs, it's a nice cat.
I don't know. But like the animals, they have such distinct personalities as well. So maybe if you spend a little bit more time with the animal, you see, not every dog, I mean, I don't know, some dogs, come to you only when you're sad, and then they show somehow that they're next to you when you're sad. Some others are there all the time.
Okay.
And just want to be like,
let's backtrack 1 minute.
they have personality, so maybe they can convince you even without the lack of ability to speak and everything.
Let's just backtrack 1 minute. You just said something very important. You're an animal lover, you have a bias.
Yes, I do.
Right?
I do. And
Imagine
my opinion.
a bunch of men sitting there in a room where there is no woman. For centuries there was no woman making noise. What do you think would happen? There were enough bias from men being inserted in the law to give men a leg way up. If I put you in a law right now, if I put you in a law area right now for advocacy for animals, and put you among a group of people who didn't care much about animals, everything you be trying to put into that law is the protection of animals in a certain way. Right? Now, people will be arguing different. The point is, among the spectrum of men that exists at that point in time, they all have one perspective, that women were below men. So any law that would put women equal to a man would be resisted. There were laws to protect women. Yes, do not do this to a woman. Do not, In fact, the law even exists as far back as, if you believe in the Bible, do not cover that neighbor's wife. It goes all the way back, right? But the application of that became very difficult as
women are not equal to them in a specific thing.
Well, that was back then. Now it's
back then as well, for example, like from the richer families, especially in England and everything, women had quite a good life, even though they were not involved with politics, even though they had to go out of the room when the men were gathering to discuss the new business deals or trade deals or laws or whatever. They were educated. They could play a couple of music instruments. They knew languages. They were happy actually in their women circles. And okay, men treated them as not equally, which I don't say it's right. I just say about the facts how it was. Like men treated them not equally in terms of okay, now I will decide with whom to do trade on the other continent, but at the same time they were the masters of the house very often. And when actually the man was going to have his drink late in the night or whatever, the woman was telling him what to do, or in some cases at least they were actually the rulers of the house.
There were women that pushed the envelope.
And I'm not saying that this is good.
And that is specific cases. There were women of higher stature that existed, being far as Cleopatra. Right? There were women as higher status that pushed the envelope.
Were different. The women were.
That is pure. Women that pushed the envelope. They knew how to use their skills to get a man to the table to negotiate. But it wasn't law for every woman there is. It was only for a certain group of people. Certainly, there were women within the hierarchy of men at the point in time. These women had a trickle-down right because they had to look educated. They had to appear educated to associate in the class of people. But now, a girl from way down can come up from no class and still associate based on the education she has. Yeah. It is the right to educate that was more important, because those that are being educated will only be educated like a flock. Like you go out there, you tend your flock, you say, okay, let's go for slaughter, let's go. Yeah, no. But now it's holistically spread out, right? So the entire society is benefiting as a result of more educated women. Hence, for example, look at you, right? You got the gentleman here, you are educated, he's educated. That is a better, it enhances economically, it enhances socially. You're able to make decisions together, you're able to decide things together, you look at things from both perspectives, both spectrum, and make things happen. So we are benefiting from that revolution that took place, where women came into this phase and said, you know what, yes, okay, other women went a hard way and said, you know what, I just don't care about this anymore, I'm going to do something different. Other women said, okay, I will form myself into something different and respect my partner, I will demand respect from my partner give me respect. But we're going to be together in one house and make things happen. Women, imagine, right now you can come to this kitchen and say, honey, remember you cooked so thing yesterday? Yeah, I want to eat this. And you'll be like, all right, you cook it, let's just eat out, eat it with you. So he's in your world. Yeah. He's eating what you want to eat. Back then, the woman only cooks what the man wanted to eat. So whether she wanted to eat it or not, it wasn't her choice. It was a duty.
That's true.
My child.
That's true.
Yes, a child, you also have to eat.
Yes, you also have to eat what you order.
Exactly.
So you said something very important, because you added the qualifier rich.
Yes, I was speaking specifically about
because it hasn't been there, because also what you're saying is true, but it also misses, for me, this qualifier with richness. Because 99% of men were just equally bad, had a bad deal as most women.
This is what I wanted to point out. It was actually a class division, you know, so the rich men were better off in any way, but actually the 99% of the poor men, or the slaves or the workers or whatever, maybe women were more restricted, but kind of they both have.
Also, a woman from the aristocratic class, if we're talking about Victorian England, had 100, that's unqualified, it was way better off than a guy who was poor.
That's what I wanted as well to say. Yeah, the woman from the higher classes was much better than a poor guy. It's just something that you don't hear as well. And it's just, I'm not saying that I agree absolutely with all of what you said. It's a great achievement, and like maybe I wouldn't be here doing exactly that if we hadn't made that progress. But still, if we talk about history to be accurate and when we do, because there are also these sides of it. And
I'll just give you this perspective, right? We always have this trickle down perspective. Humankind, we've always had trickle down perspective. For example, one trickle down perspective that affects our lives is we want to be like our fathers, or maybe more than our fathers, right? So of course we understand the social class, the social diversification that exists at that point in time, where you have the rich people up and lower people down. But understand this, perception was there. The poor guys were seeing what a rich guy was doing to women. Of course, they wanted to maintain similar status. The easy way to do it is to practice what a rich guy does. Yes, even though I'm not rich, I don't need nothing to subjugate my woman to nothing. I don't need to be rich to do that, right? It gives me pride. It will give a guy pride to feel like I'm the rooster in this home. I can do whatever I want to do. But both of them, the lower class people at that point in time, or we call it the cobblers at that time, we call them, they lack education. That was one thing that was across the board, the women and the men. They were not privileged enough to have the level of education that higher class people were getting, even in my country. So the more and more that these lower class people started to progress in terms of educating themselves and expanding their mind, they realized that, but I shouldn't be treating my before World War II, more and more women were educated. That's the reason why women were able to move immediately into the labor market when men weren't around. And at that point in time, there was some level of balance in the home. Yes, we still have more women tending to the kitchen than going to work, but we have women going to work. There was some women going to work. The influx of women, the huge flow of women into the labor market came as a result after World War II, where the shortage of labor was there. But they were prepared. They had education. They could read and write. So education created an equilibrium in some way. So that's the reason why people can look back at history and come back and say, you know what, the best way to create a good middle class is to make sure women are educated, because they are having kids. They can pass that education on to the children and bring them out of poverty and bring themselves out of poverty. Most of the women that participated during after the World War II, they weren't poor anymore.
Yeah.
They could afford a rent, they could afford a house, they would join their finances with their spouses, and they build worth for themselves. Imagine if the only guy alone was doing that. It's going to be difficult. And that's the reason why couples now today are much richer, even though, yes, we have all these economics trickle down and all that kind of thing going on, but couples are now richer because they both parties are educated and working.
Absolutely.
If in some cases they're working, so they're much more economical. But it's education has made that equal.
But I think the education has contributed to the person realizing not that only you can't treat your partner like that, but you can't treat the other person.
Exactly.
No matter whether it's your female partner or your male friend who is on a lower class level, he can't be your slave. You can't be the crap out of him and his kids, like that. This is what education has contributed to. And of course, this has opened the door for women as well, because we were kind of part of, like in a way oppressed on some levels. But it's about realizing what the other human being is, regardless of whether it's a female or a man. And of course, this development has contributed for the females to rise up. But the thing is that, in many cases, we just separate, like, the men realize that women are lower, the women realize that men are lower. And it's just about, no, we actually grow, I believe, to realize what a human being is. And that all of these differences that we have, female, male, rich, poor, from Liberia, from Bulgaria, from Austria, are differences out there, but they could be like an additional richness, something that enriches us. But after all, we all are on the same level.
We're on the same level, on the same
page. We want
page.
to connect, and we want the same things.
My grandma, may her soul rest in peace. You say
I think this is a
we all have red. We all have red
out
blood.
of this.
My grandma, may her soul rest in peace. Oh, we all have red blood.
Yeah,
We all have feelings.
Somebody told me, like first you start from I'm a human being.
Yeah, I'm a human being first.
I'm a human being, and then it comes I'm a female, and then I'm lower, I'm this age, but first is I'm a human being. I feel like these achievements lately start to remind us that this is really the foundation. We start going back more to that principle. Oh, we are human beings. So this is the emphasis, I believe.
Sometimes it's that the differences get more emphasized than the
common factors.
That's the fake public reality.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking about when we sit here, when we share like that, when we see how different backgrounds are, this is the amazing. Yeah.
Exactly.
But publicly, it's exploited and what makes money is conflict.
Because it emphasizes exactly, it pitches the people against each other, men against women, they compete for the same, those people against those, refugees against those
today
people.
we have the two things clashing somehow, because I feel like there is a general awakening among people, and at the same time I feel like there is a huge propaganda for profit and money separation, polarization, and everything on the basis of the differences. And those two things kind of...
Maybe it's the same development, just from different
Or maybe
sides.
it's the same development from different sides. What we said about before, that you have to kind of go into one extreme in order to imagine that the other
extreme is
you're
better.
going to really have the urge to create it. So maybe it's actually a process of these two extremes really meeting something.
Life has changed. I remember when I was a kid coming up, I never heard that a man goes into a delivery room. I never heard that when I was a kid.
Yeah, true.
Now it has become the thing.
To me, it was not.
This is so true, because in our country we also
Back in those days,
so,
never happened.
with us as well, my
our great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Completely.
Well, yes, it was. It's business.
That's curious actually, because it was, I mean, back in the day it was more curious to have your children at home than to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
I wonder how that went down though.
Close the door.
The man was not there. Yeah,
Close the door. It's midwife.
The midwives there, or one.
Then when the child is born, they bring the child. Say, here's your child.
Absolutely.
As opposed to this is ours.
In Bulgaria until now, almost. I mean,
So it's a different generation, different change. Because if you look at the, from the higher structure of the European Union, the value that's inculcated within the principles and the strategic approach also take into account all of these important elements of human nature.
yeah.
Even in Liberia, we take into account these women, respect for women, their body, caring for it. So liberal-wise, the world has kind of like changed in a way where we young men are now showing, in my opinion, somebody can make a great argument against it, we're now showing greater appreciation for women nowadays. You hear people arguing for women's rights, we hear people arguing for, women's suffrage and everything else, making better position on that. There are more and more argument towards that effect as opposed to maybe 1930s or 1960s or 1940s. Different. Right now, you understand the pain of your woman far more because you are much more in tune with her as opposed to our great-great-great-grandfathers. Things changed in the world. And thanks to all the new policies and programs and connectivity of the world that we have today, to see different cultures, to appreciate different cultures, to appreciate the human factor within cultures, and to be able to give back to that in a positive way. I think that we've made enough progress, but progress still is yet to be made in major areas. I mean, it's being made in areas.
That's where we can look forward to the future. I just want to say, because of the delivery, because in my culture in Bulgaria, it's also common in a way, for the father not to be there when the woman is giving birth. And then when I was pregnant and I was about to give birth here, I kind of first told him, oh no, you can't be there, because I'm so used to this concept, of that he can't be there in that situation. And then, of course, when after the pregnancy and everything, he was there during the whole process and he was next to me. And first of all, this was such an amazing support to me, and second of all, it bonded us on such an amazing level that I would never be able to picture beforehand that doing this that would actually have such great results. After that, we discovered ourselves in a different
light.
Absolutely. And this was amazing, and this was one of the moments that I realized, my God, really, how much this change, of these traditions can actually on this side.
You're not changing the tradition. You're still in a position of the mother birth, the mother. But now have a major support, hand in hand. We made this together, hand in hand, and we're bringing it into our world, hand in hand. I'm not sitting now in my office behind a computer and typing, waiting for my phone to ring. I'm there.
You're there, And
so that's what's
it's amazing, I think, for both parties, not only for the woman, but for the father as well.
Wow, I like the fact we've jumped through hoops, we've jumped through women's rights, society structure, social structure.
I believe there's not so much more that we can talk.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be the party pooper.
No, but I have to take tea with her.
Exactly.
Yeah, but seeing that for the first half hour, so it wasn't with sound.
That's okay.
We can even start, because I would like to have you.
Oh, sure, I'll be here. I'll definitely be here.
It's a great pleasure going through so many things.
Yeah.
And it feels like we barely scratched the surface.
There are a lot of things to talk about. If we're about to move up, first and foremost, thank you for the platform. This is a great platform. And to add to that, we will have to elevate the conversation to much more substantive conversation that brings about how do we resolve issues surrounding some of the things that are happening right now in our world, and so the changes and stuff like that, because young people matter a lot, and whatever happens in the world affects our future going forward. So it would be a great thing to get into such discussion in the future. But I like the fact that we're doing over beer. It's friendly. All right, that's great.
I believe that's the only way that you can actually talk about something substantial.
Yeah. sure, absolutely. No, I mean, for me, I believe in solutions, right?
Yeah.
I hate to have a generic conversation without finding something substantial, because at the end of the day, I want some level of education. Going back, it enriches my life, it enriches my position in return. Yeah. So I think that hopefully going forward, based upon your timeline and wish, I will certainly be here.
Yeah, great.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. All right. So we're off now?
Press the button.
CNN?